Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'd like to thank all of you very much for your enthusiasm and being authors. I'm an author, Janet Spur, Beach Chair Diaries, which you can get from your independent bookstore.
Boom!
But most of all, I'd really like to thank Jon Grisham. I've followed you for many years. Maybe you've seen me in your backyard, but I love that you wrote at 4 o'clock in the morning in your law office with all the lights on, and everyone thought you were a really hardworking lawyer when actually you were working on the firm. And I must admit, I read your book, The Pelican, while driving, but I'm from Boston and we can do that.
Do you have a question?
Yes. Sorry.
You're killing us.
Your last book, Ford County Stories, was so great that I wondered if any of those stories will be turned into a book.
There you go.
I think I got your question. Would any of the collection of short stories?
Yes.
Would any become a novel?
Yes.
They almost all started off as a novel, but I just couldn't. They weren't long enough. And so they gave this collection of long stories. But no, I'm finished with those stories. I'm done. Some of those I worked on for 15 years, and no, I'm not going back there. I'll go back to that locale with more stories, but not that first batch. No.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Research. How did you talk your husband into doing the research for long?
My husband made the mistake when I started writing long. He said, "Sex research, hey, I'll volunteer." Then you volunteer, And the other thing that I did is I lied and I said, you haven't been to London in 25 years. What do you think of the researcher was? So this is, ultrasound scan. That must not make sense.
I think we know what Bach is.
Short answer. I kind of tricked him into it. I feel, I owe him a huge favor. Yeah, but he's a really a good guy in need.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I'm just trying to invite people wrong. Asking people various diametrically opposed.
We have one back here.
Where's that?
Hello, the short girl in the back. I'm standing.
Hi, Sandy.
I really am.
Nice to see you, Sandy.
Nothing.
Oh, you want to? Okay, why don't we do Sandy first?
Me? Standing? Good morning, everybody. Thank you. My question is not about the writing process, but what about if you are a self-published author and you have caught the creative buzz, what is the jump between being that self-published author? I know that we're here, but can you give advice to those of us that don't live in New York and LA and have a bunch of contacts, how to get from that local author venue to a larger stage?
I would think that would be Mary and John.
You want to go?
I was going to say you could become Secretary of State, but I don't think that's really, let's be honest here.
Do you have a?
No, go ahead.
Getting an agent is really key, and an agent doesn't have to be in LA or New York. I mean, you could have. I live in the Bay Area. My agent is in New York, but that's just a coincidence. An agent is and you can go on agentquery.com, which lists them all. You can do like searches by genre, and
You could also check synagogues. What, too soon?
Do you have anything to add?
Not really.
You got nothing? Yeah. All right. Yes, ma'am.
My question is actually for Dr. Rice. What advice would you give to a young woman who is an international affairs major and actually trying to break into a career in either the Department of State or something very similar to that?
Right. Well, the first piece of advice I'd give you is to make sure that you're passionate about whatever it is you're doing, because it's hard work. Learning the languages, learning the culture, spending the time, it's hard work. And if you're passionate about it, that's the first and most important step. I had to find something I was passionate about before I could be good at it. And I think we don't spend enough time just figuring out what that is. The second thing is that there are lots of opportunities, for instance, in the Foreign Service, in the Peace Corps, with non-governmental organizations that are working abroad, time that you can spend abroad really getting to know that world. And I'd take some probes first. Try a few things first to make sure that you really like it. But the most important thing that you can do is to find mentors who will help you. It is absolutely not true. None of us gets to where we are on our own. That's a myth. We are all helped at some point in our life by people who take an interest in us. Maybe it's a professor, maybe it's somebody in the company that you're working in, somebody who's going to take an interest in you. And just one other point about that, don't wait for somebody who looks like you. I know we have this notion that in order to do something, you have to have somebody who looks like you do it first. Well, if that were the case, there would be no first. My good friend Sally Ride, who was the first woman in space, if she'd been waiting for a female astronaut, would still be grounded. My good friend Colin Powell, if he'd been waiting for the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, would never have been. And so seek your mentors as people who care about you, not people who look like you. It's great when you can find somebody who looks like you, but just seek out somebody. And by the way, be a pest. If you find somebody that you're interested in and you think, you know, I like that person, they're doing something that I'm interested in, you'd be surprised how well people respond to going up to them and saying, you know, I'd really like to get to know you better. Can you help me figure out my next step? And finally, take your next step, not your next 10. We can talk.
Does anyone have a question where we don't end up having to help you people? Is anybody okay where they are in their career and just wants to know some shit about what we do? Yes, ma'am. Yes, with the mic, and then we'll go to this ma'am, and then I think we might have time for maybe one or two more. Yeah.
Hi, I'm an editor, and I was just curious what you've enjoyed about your author-editor relationship.